Hi, this is Christine. Welcome to Scrap and Rabbit. In today's videos, I want to show you step by step how I went about creating this journal. This started off with the hardcover book that I picked up at the thrift shop. The book measures about 2¼ inches thick. It's 8½ inches high, and it's about 5¾ inches wide. But you can use this process to make a journal in whatever size book you find. Now, I'm going to show you how to attach the pages inside the book. Somebody did ask me in my last video when I uploaded my young lady journal how I attached the pages inside the book. So I decided I may as well go ahead and make a video on it. There are already a few videos up there, but then I thought I'll do a step-by-step to take the journal from start to very end. And I'm going to show how to attach the pages inside, how I embellished my cover, and how I embellished the edges of the pages. So let me just show you quickly. I use seam binding to keep the journal closed. And these are the inside pages. I've got 5 signatures in there, and the total album has 160 pages for writing in. So these are either coffee stained or white pages. So depending on the thickness of your book, you can either have fewer signatures or fewer pages per signature. If your book is a little bit narrower than this one, I like this big thick book because I can add extra embellishments on the side. Now, adding these embellishments on the side also is a great way to add texture without making the journal itself too bulky on the inside. I've seen a lot of videos now where people put these little charms and little tabs on their pages, and they came out really, really nice, I think. So let's get started. I found this paper pad at Michael's. I've never seen this brand before. It's by Linda Wood, and it's called Storyteller, and it's absolutely gorgeous paper. There's a lot of glitter on some of the pages, and it reminds me of the beautiful Indian fabrics. As a matter of fact, there's an elephant here with a beautiful design on it. So I think this is probably inspired by India. Anyways, the colors are just gorgeous, and I thought this would make a really nice journal. And the nice thing about this pad is about halfway through the pages are double-sided. So the front pages are single-sided but extremely thick. They're like cardstock, and then the rest are more like a thick paper. It's really, really good quality. Now, I found a book to make my journal, and it's this one. And when I saw the design on here, I thought this paper will be perfect for it. I'm going to use that for some of my signatures. Now, this book is quite thick, so I've got lots of room in there for embellishments as well, which is nice. And I'm going to show you how to take the book apart. Now, when you're picking your book, you want to make sure that you can remove the contents easily enough. And sometimes these older books work better for that. Some of the new books come, and you don't want to have this happen. I tried to remove the spine, but it was glued on the back. So I ended up destroying the covers. I can still read the book, but the cover is destroyed in this one. And I really liked it because the title was Miss Mayhem, and I thought that would make an awesome journal. So I'll just read the book instead. But this one, there is a gap in there, so I should be able to take it apart fairly easily. So I'm going to start by doing that now. And I'm going to grab my X-Acto knife, and very carefully, I don't want to cut through my spine or the hard cover, so I'm going to cut this paper that's holding the inside section to the covers. So I'm just going to grab my X-Acto knife and very gently cut. And I'm going to cut straight down like that. There we go. And then I do the same thing on the other side. I can just fold the cover back and then I can see better. I think this was the hardest part, was getting the pages out without damaging the cover. And I can still read the book. Next, I'm going to start assembling the signatures, and those are the pages that are going to be attached inside my covers. Now, the majority of my signatures will be made of paper for journaling. So I cut these to measure 10 by 7.5, and I'm going to fold my signatures in two, and that will give me pages that measure 5 inches by 7.5. I like having the pages a little bit narrower. I think the original pages in this book were 5.5 inches wide, but I want to make these a little bit narrower so that when they fit inside the book, I'll have a little bit of room here that I can put some tabs on the outside and they won't stick out of the book too much. So I'm going to make my signatures, and I'm using this paper. It comes from a sketchbook. So it's a little bit heavier than regular paper. This is 60 pounds and it's also acid free. And this comes from a sketchbook that I got at the dollar store. It's a great source for paper. And then I used the same paper and I coffee stained it and then baked it in the oven to get this look. This paper was also coffee stained, and I put it on a pizza pan, and you get these nice little holes in here. And that was a trick I learned from a lady who was showing how to coffee stain papers. I'll include a link to her YouTube video with her process for coffee staining in the description of this video. And of course, I'm going to also use some of the cardstock and paper from this paper pad collection here. And I'm going to, I think, put a sheet on the outside of each of the signatures, and then again maybe a few sheets inside each of the signatures for color. I finished my signature pages, and I'll show you what I did. I've got a total of 5 signatures. Now each set of pages measures 5 inches across by 7.5 inches high. And to make them, I just cut some paper to measure 10 inches across by 7.5 inches high, and I fold them in two. Now the only difference in the cutting is when I made my outside signature page, I used this sort of cardstock type paper because it's nice and strong, and because it fits on the outside of my signatures, I added 1/4 inch to the width so that it would pretty much cover the pages. If I hadn't done that, then it would probably end up like that, and I wanted it to cover as much as possible of the pages. So I cut them a 1/4 inch wider. Now I've got 5 signatures, and the total in here is 160 pages to write in. So that's quite a bit. I'm not embellishing the inside because I'm making this journal for somebody else. So I'm going to embellish the outside of the journal instead with tabs. So this fits in my album like this, and it's already quite thick. Now I'll show you how I went about deciding what to include in which signature. Basically they're all the same, except I varied just a few of the elements. Each signature holds 5 regular pages folded in 2, like this one, and 3 coffee stain pages, like this one. And I also included in 3 of the signatures some doilies. So I just folded a large doily in 2, and I'm going to attach this to my signature, to my coffee stain paper eventually, after I attach these inside my album. So that's the first one. And I did this on signatures 1 and 3. On signature number 3, I have a doily, but I wanted to vary the look a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I just folded a smaller doily in 2, and I'm going to attach that like that, just for a little bit of variety. And then in signature number 5, I did the same thing as signature number 1, and I'm going to attach my doily like that to my coffee stained paper, and you can slide some tags in there. I'm not doing anything really to these pages because I want them to be reserved for writing, and you can also of course write on these coffee stained pages. Now for pages 2 and 4, I didn't include any doilies, but I included a sheet of plastic protector. And this is from an 8x8 album that I had, and it had these plastic sheet protectors, and I just trimmed it to fit. And I'm going to include that in my journal, and you can insert some photos in there, or some journaling, or mementos, or whatnot. So I'm including that in pages 2 and 4, just for a little bit of variety. Then, in the very middle, these are so thick, they're falling all over the place. In the middle, I also included some of the beautiful paper, and this is going to be a double-sided photo mat. So I'm going to glue or tape these sides closed like that, and you can put a photo on this side and on that side if you want. But I'm not going to close this right now because this is right in the middle of my album, and when I do my stitching, I want to hide my stitching. So I'm going to stitch first, and then I'm going to seal this closed. And for this page, for my signature number 2, it's going to be similar, but I'm going to make this into a pocket. So I'm going to seal this end, and this is going to be open to slide photos in. I'm also going to put some scrapbook paper on this edge here to hide the white part. But again, I'm not going to do that right now because I want to stitch my pages into the journal before I seal this closed, and it's going to hide the stitching. So this is going to be a photo mat like the first signature, and then I've got another pocket here. This pocket's going to be a little bit narrower, and you can have a tag sticking out the edge. But again, I'm not going to seal it right now because I'm going to wait until I have this stitched in. And then I have another photo mat here. You can also insert paper bags in there, all sorts of things, but I think this is thick enough as it is, with these 5 signatures, that I'm going to insert into this album. So the next thing I'm going to do is put the holes in the signatures so that I can tie them inside the album. So to figure out where to punch the holes in my signatures, I just take a piece of paper that measures 7.5 inches tall and I fold it in 2. The width doesn't matter too much. Then I fold it in 2 lengthwise, and then again at about an inch from the bottom. Like that. Then I'm going to mark these points to make them more visible. And this is where I'm going to punch the holes in each of these signatures. You want to make sure that your papers are properly centered top to bottom if they're not all the same height. And you want to make sure they're in the proper direction. And then you take your template and you place it in the middle. And you're going to punch holes where you just marked. And the easiest way to hold things together is with a large paper clip. And I put two pieces of cardstock in the middle so that it doesn't put marks on your paper. Just make sure it's all nicely laid out, and then the chipboard and a large paper clip, and I can use the sharp end of this Martha Stewart tool, and I'm going to punch holes in each of these spots. Before I attach the pages inside the journal, I decided to cover the outside of my spine with some scrapbook paper, and also I want to attach this book plate to the side. So I put a little piece of cardstock in there. I just covered it with some two-sided tape to hold it in place. And I'll use my glue gun to attach it, and then I'll just punch the holes on either side. So I'll put a little bit of glue underneath here. Looks good like that. And then I'm going to punch some holes through the spine so I can put the little brads in on either side. I'm doing this before attaching the pages because the spine inside will be covered with my fabric. Okay, now I want those to stay put, so I'm just going to put a little piece of cardstock over these little brads, just like that. So now I can work on the inside, and I'm going to attach my pages to this piece of fabric. This is cotton, almost like a burlap type, very thick woven fabric, and I cut it so that it's just a little bit shorter than the height of the book so that it doesn't stick out the top. And that's going to go like that, and these pages will be attached like that, and then these flaps will attach to the inside and the back, the inside, front and back covers. Now I need to know where to put the holes in the fabric so that they line up with the holes in the pages. And to do that, I'm going to take a strip of paper and I cut it so that it's the same width as the spine, and I place it inside, and I also want it at least as long as the covers. I take my pages and I'm going to position them inside the journal like that, and I close it, and this will show me where the pages fall. So I'm going to take a pen here, and I'm going to mark where each page lines up. So I'm just going to put a little mark on there. Like that. And then I'm going to do the same thing over on the other side. Next, I'm going to draw my lines to show where the signatures should line up. Next, I'm going to cut this so that it's the same height as the spine. And that's 8.5 inches. Next, I take my original template that I used to mark the holes and to put the holes in my signatures, and I'm going to center this top to bottom like that. Actually, I can go ahead and just fold this in two to find the middle. Okay, so this is going to be the middle hole here. There, 4, 5, like that. Now I can line this up with the center, and then I'm going to mark the holes like that. And then I can just eyeball across here. So this is where I'm going to punch the holes. So next I'm going to lay this on my fabric like that. My fabric's a little bit narrower, so I'm just going to center that again, top to bottom. And I'm going to go ahead and punch the holes. easier if you're working on a piece of foam for punching. Okay, so I'm going to center that left to right. Yeah, it's working perfect. So now I'm ready to start attaching each of my signatures to my piece of fabric. I've got this natural bamboo cord. I picked this up at a dollar store, and it's really nice and strong, and it's not too thin, so it's not going to tear through the paper. If I was using a very thin thread, then it would tend to tear at the paper. Okay, so now I'm going to start attaching my signature by feeding my needle through the top hole like that, and I go through the top hole in my fabric. Next, I go through the middle hole in the fabric and then in the cover of the signature and all the other pages. Next, I go out the bottom hole and then I flip this over and I come back in through the middle hole. Like that. So that's what it looks like on the back. And I'm going to tie the knot here in order not to waste my cording. Now I can adjust the length that I need just by pulling on the cord in the back here. So I figure 2 inches should be good. And that's why I didn't cut it right away. So now I can trim off the tail, and in order to tie it, the easiest way is to just slide this underneath the bottom, like that, and I tie a knot. Now I don't want my knots and my cording to be visible, so later on when I seal this closed like that to make the photo mask, you won't be able to see the knot. So I'm going to attach the next page the same way in the next hole, and so on all the way down. So my pages are all attached to the piece of fabric, and I'm going to then attach the fabric in the album, and I'm going to glue the sides, and I think I might add a little bit of glue also along the top edge here, just to hold that in place, and probably along, I'll put a strip of glue along the back here too. So first I'm going to position this in my journal like that, and I'm going to just close the covers like that, and then I make sure it's centered top to bottom. That looks good, and I'm going to hold it in place with this clip. That way, as I'm gluing, it's not going to move around. And I'll put another clip in the bottom. Okay. So now I can start gluing my flap, and I'm going to use my glue gun. So I just start by putting some glue on one edge, and I just lay it down flat. So now I can remove the clips. And I'm going to keep gluing as I lay the fabric down. So I think the easiest way to do that is just put a little bit of glue along the edge here on the spine. Make sure you don't go beyond the edge of the fabric, because you don't want it the glue to be visible. Easier or safer if I apply the glue to the fabric instead of the cover, because I'm really worried about going too high or too low. then I finish off my flap. My fabric is unraveling around the edges, but that's okay. It's going to be covered. And also, some people like the frayed look. I'm going to leave it fray around the top and the bottom. It makes it look kind of rustic. So there's my pages in the journal. And I'm going to finish covering the inside, front, and the back covers.